There are some jobs out there that are just unique or different, or in some cases, a little bit weird. And today we're going to talk about our experiences in some of our own odd jobs. And we're hoping that you will join the conversation and share some of yours. So do what you got to do, grab a cup of coffee, put on the brakes, because it's time for another conversation with Coffee Breaks with Steve. Good morning, everybody. We are not Steve. It's another one of those weeks where you thought you were going to get a Steve, and
It's
you
hard to
got
keep track
us.
of a Steve. A
I know,
Steve is
you
just
lose him a lot. He's like Carmen
a Steve in
Sandiego.
motion tends to stay in motion.
This is true.
Yeah.
Today you have me, Karissa. I'm the director of Coffee Breaks with Steve, and you have a Cheech, a producer of Coffee Breaks
Chelan,
with Steve.
Chelan Shepherd, but this felt right this morning.
It's
So
just the
heavens, a
Cheech
Cheech.
today. The Cheech has
Yes,
had a
ma'am.
week. It's a Cheech week.
It's a Cheech week. It's a Cheech
um,
week. I'll drink
and
to
you,
that
you
right
know,
now.
you
Hey,
want to
Rick.
know something? You want to know something? I think
Yeah.
I think we might actually have a third person here today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we might have. Oh, you get a Steve.
I
Steve
am
is joining
actually here.
us.
Joining
I
us
am
from New
actually joining us
Orleans.
from New Orleans, Louisiana. I didn't plan on it because I didn't know what our schedule would be
Oh,
here. But as
Jenny's
it
here.
turns out, got a little bit of time here, so I get to join you. But it's still going to be your show today. You still get to hijack the show, and I do see that we've got some people who are on already. Rick is here.
Hi,
Jenny is
Rick.
here.
Hi, Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny's never here.
Okay.
Hello, my preciouses. Oh,
Precious.
that's
Not
you have to
Gollum
do it
like
in that
Gollum.
voice too. You have to do it in Gollum's voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we do want people to make sure that they engage in the chat and do all the things.
Hopefully today
Um,
will be a fun conversation. I always like topics like this because you get to hear other people's stories about odd situations they've been in or odd jobs that they've had. It's like, you did what? So I'm hoping
yeah,
this will be a really, really fun conversation today.
I think it will be. Shalane, you've never had any jobs that you would consider odd, weird, or unusual, right? All
We'll
right.
see.
We'll see about that.
This
Yeah.
brought
No,
up some.
no
This did bring
spoilers.
up some PTSD. I went, oh yeah, no wait.
Oh
This,
no. Yeah,
oh
I
wait,
What
that
about this
happened.
job?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
we all
Yeah.
have those jobs that when we go back and reflect on them, it gets a
Oh,
little bit
oh.
it can actually it can trigger some things, shall we
Right.
say? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Some
Carla's here. Hi,
feelings.
Carla.
Hi, Carla.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jenny usually watches later. Well, at least we know you're watching.
She's watching. She's watching. Jenny was one of the people, but and this, by the way, this is technically the first episode of season 8.
That's true.
Last week
Welcome
we
to season
celebrated
8.
the seventh anniversary show, and Jenny was one of the people who shared a little
I loved
video
her
with
video.
us, always
We might be
watching.
So
working on that
snarky.
jacket idea, Jenny.
Yeah, might have to.
Maybe.
She's probably sewing the patch onto her
I
jacket
know,
right
right?
now as she watches. I can see her. She's watching the screen. Oh my gosh. Oh, what's been going on? It's been an interesting week. I know for some it has not been an easy week, and that goes
My week
for
was dumb. I shan't talk about it. I'm just happy to be here.
She
I
had a
I,
cheat week.
I kind of am too because ours started with a little bit of upheaval, and I won't go into detail right
I
now,
was gonna
but
say, you gonna
fortunately
discuss it?
it
It was
after
wild.
after the upheaval that began the week, we ended up in a little more downheaval, which
Downheaval.
is that a term? I think it
We'll
is
make it a
now.
term. We made
But
it one.
that is what permitted me to actually the downheavalage is what permitted me to go ahead and make this trip to New Orleans. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Do we want to get into our sweet and savory?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
The
Well,
charcuterie.
I know you're
I
so
know the
excited.
charcuterie is here, right? I
Very
want to
good.
mention this one because this was exciting for me for the last several months now, almost a year. Carol, your guy's mom, my wife,
Yeah,
Carol,
that one.
has thought about this for a long time. You know, she is a fantastic singer in her own right, solo singer, and has been that way most of her life. She's sung in church. She's performed, and she doesn't necessarily think that she's still a great singer, but every time she is willing to get up in a public karaoke place,
Mm-hmm.
we saw it
Standing
happen a few weeks. She
ovation.
gets a standing
Yeah.
ovation after she sings. That does not happen at
No.
karaoke.
No.
But anyway, she made a decision a few months ago to reach out to and eventually join a group called the Spirit of Spokane Chorus, which is a part of the International Sweet Adelines. That's the International Women's Barbershop quartets and choirs. And she's a part of the group that meets in Spokane. And they are getting ready in a week, next Saturday, to participate in regional competition, which takes place here in Spokane. And it's Sweet Adelines quartets and choirs from all over the western part of the United States, I think, northwestern at least. And they meet in Spokane, and this will be the first time that Carol is joining them for the competition. But last week, they had something they call their Friends and Family Concert, which they typically do as they're leading into one of their competitions. Gives them a chance in front of a live audience of very favorable people, obviously, friends and family, to practice singing their songs. And if you look carefully, up on the far right, as you're looking at the screen, above the head of the director who's standing there in the green cape, on the end there, up in the top row, there's Carol.
I
And
know her.
I
Hey,
got
you know her.
her and listened to her
Cute.
Spirit of Spokane chorus, and they did a great job, and it was just fun to see her up there having fun, enjoying it, doing well. So I say huzzah to Carol.
Huzzah!
Huzzah, mother.
Huzzah, mother. And you know where I am, right?
Yes, you're on a special trip.
I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana, but I'm here
Orleans.
with a special group. This is a group you've heard me talk about before. We've actually featured them on the show before a couple of times. This is the Saber Six Foundation, and it is a nonprofit organization that serves veterans and specifically focuses on veterans who were part of a very specific unit that served in Afghanistan. And we do several events during the year that are designed to try to help bring veterans together, and they, doing them in different regions of the country allows, sometimes not all the veterans can get to any one thing, but veterans who are in that region, in that area, can make it. And so in this picture, you're seeing veterans and spouses in some cases who are here for this particular, what they call a Saber Challenge. And we're in New Orleans together, and I get to be here. I work with this organization and get to be here with them this week. So that's very exciting. In fact, I can show you a little bit of what I've been doing if you're interested in seeing it.
Do it.
Just from
Do it.
So we are in New
New
Orleans.
Orleans is a place I want to visit. I haven't been, and I
It's
want
an
to go.
interesting city. We're past Mardi Gras, but there is a jazz festival, a New Orleans festival going on this week, which means that many of the streets around the French Quarter are blocked off to vehicle traffic, and you have to walk. So you can only get within a few blocks of where you're going sometimes, and then walk the rest of the way, which is fine because it's an interesting atmosphere. But just to give you an idea, the first evening that we were here, we had an opportunity in the French Quarter to go to a location where they teach you actually get to work in little teams around different cook stations to make your own gumbo. And there I am with some of my team members, and we are making gumbo from scratch, and then we got to eat what we prepared, plus they served some additional things to us. So the evening we arrived, we immediately got into it. And then yesterday we had an opportunity to visit the National World War II Museum. Now this is obviously National World War II Museum. It's huge. It's on the scale, and I would put it in similar category in terms of excellence to like Smithsonian's, if you've ever been to any of those.
That's what it
museums.
reminded me of when I was taking the pictures.
Amazing place. And they've got, just the exhibits that are in here on so many different levels. You can find out things about kind of pre-war, what led up to it, how the United States first got involved, our involvement in both the Pacific and Atlantic theaters of operation. They have, airplanes hanging from the ceiling. Again, similar to like the Smithsonian Air and Space, maybe not quite on that scale, but still a lot of excellence. And then yesterday, after we went to that museum, we went to lunch. Oh, wait, we skipped something here. I may have left a slide out of this, but we had crawfish for lunch, huge plates of crawfish. And then we got to take the flatboat, the swamp boat rides out onto the bayou, as you can see there. Those are the ones that have the giant fans on top that propel them because they can't have anything under the water. The water's so shallow. and it's a beautiful ride anyway to see that part of the country. But then also, we actually got up close and personal with some alligators.
Some closer and more personal than others.
Some closer and more
I
personal than
didn't
others. They were right up next to the
I didn't
boat.
realize this bothered me until my father was there
And then you're
And
like,
showing
being
you
no,
the
some video
present.
from this too.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? This is a fear of mine. Fear unlocked. Didn't
Yeah.
realize
Well,
that.
but these are adventures. These are all things. And if you were here, you would want to do this. It's
I would
not
have done it
dangerous
with
in any
you.
way, shape, or form. It's perfectly safe. You're inside the boat. The
It's not
alligators cannot
perfectly safe.
typically
The odds of getting
typically
killed by a
cannot
duck are
climb in.
low, but never zero.
Yeah.
that's true. This is
Uh,
valid.
The chances of getting eaten by an alligator while on a swamp boat ride. Anyway, it was a lot of fun, and then came back and had dinner, relaxed. I actually did not go back out to check out the French Quarter last night. I wanted to kind of call it a little bit of an early evening. It was a busy day yesterday. We still got events today. We're going to be visiting Battlefield and having some time together. And again, being with these veterans, I'll mention this a little bit more at the end, is a privilege and an honor for me. And Saber Six Foundation is a great organization. So, all right, let's get back to the show here. And we do have a couple of birthdays, Karissa and Chelan, that I thought we should mention. One is Isaac Knox. He's been on the show before. He is a
He's a
freestyle
comedian
rapper
rapper.
and comedian. Yes, he
He's so
does.
brilliant.
He makes up he will go in front of an audience and tell jokes and stuff, and then he will get some theme ideas from, think of like Whose Line Is It, where they would just get some words or ideas from the audience, and then he just makes up a rap piece to
It's
that.
wild.
So Isaac is
Crazy.
pretty phenomenal. And then also my sister, your aunt Kathy, has a birthday coming up on April 24th, and we just want to celebrate with her as well. So happy birthday, Kathy, coming up this week.
I have a theory that she's not in here today because she's avoiding us talking about her.
It
That's
could
my
be,
theory.
but the other thing about Kathy is I have a theory that she really doesn't age at all.
That's
which
true.
is a little
She
bit,
looks the same.
It's a little
as
bit
my whole life.
unsettling.
Yeah.
I
She's
just
what mom would call a slapper, where you're
Yeah,
so
she's
cute.
just like,
She's so
you-
cute,
you
you want to
could say
slap her.
so. Yeah, very
Yeah.
definitely. So happy birthday both to Isaac and Kathy this week.
Happy birthday.
And then I don't know if we missed anybody. Maybe somebody else has a birthday this week or an anniversary or something else special that maybe we overlooked. And if so, I'm going to blame it on the two of you because you're technically the hosts today. But if anybody does, you can feel free to put that in the chat. And if you've got something, she's cry out frozen nightly. Yeah, that's good, Jenny. I think you may be right. I don't know. But this is a good one. Hey, we can celebrate this. I think
we tried to do it at the
celebrate
same
this.
time.
I know. We were trying to click at the same
We got
time.
excited.
Rick and Carla, alcohol-free for 26 years on April 24th. I'll tell you something. That's worth a huge
that doesn't
huzzah.
sound right. I'll drink coffee to that.
Huzzah!
Yeah, we can everybody drink.
I would, but I don't have a coffee
to
today.
that one.
Guys, I got up 5 minutes before the show is supposed to start. I don't have my coffee today.
So I'm 2 hours time zone difference from you on the West Coast today. So I've been up since 5 o'clock your time a.m.
Nope.
So
I
I've been
was
up
up
now
yesterday.
for.
I was up, in
2
my
hours.
defense, I was up at 4 a.m. yesterday and I was out until 11:30. So I slept.
In
I
my
hear you.
defense,
You had a crappy week.
It's just been
yeah, I get
it's
to
been
sleep
a
as much as I want.
challenging week in several ways, and
Challenging is a
I'm with
great
you on
word.
that one. So all right. Well, and again, let us know if you do have something that we need, and if it comes up later, maybe it's next month or later in the year. You just want to make sure that we're prepared to talk about
We'll put
when
it on the
time comes.
calendar.
We'll put it on the calendar. Send us an email, cbwsteve@comcast.net. All right, listen. You're the ones who wanted to talk about. I think this was your idea, Karissa.
Yeah.
That's cool. Good idea.
Mostly
So-
because I wanted Chelan to talk about her weird jobs.
Well,
I was like,
Fair.
Chelan's got good stories.
I
I'm not
realized
saying you're wrong.
there were a few I don't know that you even know about.
But probably not. And also, I'm wondering what Dad's oddest job has ever been.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
I can
curious
talk about
that.
a few. I can talk
Because
about
all
a
I know
few.
is Plaid Pantry, and then
Plaid
That's
Pantry
one
was,
of them.
Was
getting
why
robbed
I've
at the
heard
Plaid
stories.
Pantry.
Yeah.
That's one of mine. But I don't know, Karissa. Since this was your topic, do you have what were some of? And by the way, we do want the brew crew tuning in to talk about some of their odd, unusual jobs, that type of thing. You'll get an idea, Brew Crew, of what we're referring to as we
Mm,
begin this, I think.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it's I'm one of those people that I've had a lot of jobs. I've kind of had a job in almost every industry at this point. I think I think that like the few industries that I haven't had a job in would include stuff like welding, IT,
yeah, construction,
and in construction. Those are like kind of
yeah,
probably the three major fields that I haven't been involved in.
automobile
The
mechanics,
sciences,
the
I would say
science,
the
medical.
sciences,
Have you been a
although
surgeon? Have you been a
I have
medical
not been a
doctor?
surgeon, but I have had two medical jobs. I had a very, very short, less than 2 week job. My very first job was working. I was seven. This was ridiculous. This is a ridiculous job. I should never have gotten this job because I wasn't qualified and I was 17 years old. And like everybody around me was like 40 plus and looking at me like, why is this psycho little kid here? Not only that, but it involved heavy phone work. And at the time, I hadn't had any like sales or customer service experience yet. And I don't like talking on the phone. So it's like, but I was scheduled as a surgical scheduler for
Right,
Providence
right.
and
In
I
Portland.
lasted 2 weeks because
Yeah,
I was just like, this is the most uncomfortable I've ever been in a job. But
yeah.
that's I worked for surgeons.
Wait,
I
wait, wait,
also
wait, wait. That
worked.
was wasn't that your first job?
That was
So
my
no
very
matter
first
what,
job.
it would have been
Yeah.
uncomfortable, the most uncomfortable you'd ever been
Yeah,
in a
but
job.
at 17, I'm thinking, yeah, this isn't worth it. And looking back, I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? If I had stuck with that job, I'd have like the most amazing benefits. I'd have a retirement
Oh,
package. Like I should have
But
stuck with that job. It wasn't that bad.
listen, I think we've all had those jobs, particularly as teenagers, especially first getting into the workforce where the overwhelm, you can look back now and you can say, now I could handle that job
Right. Yeah.
because maturity and experience and all of those things. And that's part of why, I mean, in one way or another, do you feel like that, even that 2 weeks, you remember it?
Well,
Does it have a bearing on how you see yourself now capable of dealing with things?
it really set me up for understanding how work worked. And
The realities.
I've had a lot of jobs now that required phone work and,
Yeah.
multiple computer screens and things like that. I actually did end up working for a specialty pharmacy company where I was doing a lot more than I would have had to do as a scheduler. And I felt more secure in understanding what that job would have expected of me because of that first job, even though I wasn't ready for that first one at the time. So.
Covering up Chelan's face for a minute because I thought this one from Carla was worth. No, you can be up there, Chelan.
Oh,
Just
she
you
didn't
just
have to wear the roller skates.
yeah, just look over the top of that. Car hop at A&W, not on roller skates. All right, great and sticking them on people's windows. That's cool, and that has to have prepared you for other things in life when you have to stick things on people's
That's
over
important.
people's windows, right, Carla?
Important capability.
Chelan,
sounds like a
what do you
euphemism.
consider? What was one of your first jobs, Chelan? Do you remember your very first job?
Okay, so as I was doing this, I always say my first job was the Chapel of Love at the Mall of America, but that is untrue.
But that's
That is a
not true.
non-truth.
We're going to come
My
back to that one
earliest-
though.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one. My earliest job was I would get paid when I was in high school. I was part of a touring group of actors who would get paid to skip school, go to other schools, and do shows about abstinence for other
Right.
schools.
Yeah, you did
That's
plays about that. It
right.
was through.
I got paid $50 per
Wasn't that through
show.
one of the medical groups
It was
too?
through a hospital.
It was
a
through Kaiser.
hospital.
It was through
through
Kaiser.
Kaiser.
That's right. It was that Kaiser's theater troupe. That's
Yeah,
right.
I forgot
That's
about that
interesting.
one.
All right, let's talk for a minute though. You brought it up. Talk about when you were going to college in Minnesota and you got your part-time job there.
I begged for this job. I had another job at a place called Deb, which is a teenage
Like
young
clothing store.
clothing store.
Yeah.
This was in the Mall
Chaos.
of America. Mall of
Mall of
America,
America in
Minneapolis, St. Paul
Minnesota.
area. Yeah.
Minnesota.
Deb was chaos and stressful and, clothing retail. And so like every day I would go and pass by the Chapel of Love and talk to the owner and be like, are there any openings? Are there now? What about now?
How about now?
And eventually,
What was it about Chapel of Love? Was it because it was weird and unique specifically that attracted you?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems so sweet in the Mall of America. It looked
Wedding chapel.
It's a wedding chapel in the mall.
And also,
when
but
you
also
get married.
they do they sell or just rent
Formal
wedding-
dresses too, right?
They sell there was a very small collection of wedding dresses as
Okay.
well that they would sell off rack. And you
Okay.
didn't have to wear their dresses or anything, but if it was just like,
It was a way to get
I
people
swear
in
there
the
were
door.
9 styles available.
Okay.
In different
Very
sizes.
small
So we
selection.
had stuff that we would sell for weddings, but then I was also the person stage managing in the background when there were weddings, sometimes as few as 2 people. So I am the witness on a lot of people's wedding
Your name
That's
is on a
fun.
lot
marriage
of
licenses.
marriage licenses in Minnesota.
Hopefully
Minnesota.
nobody
19-year-old
blames
stranger
you.
going, yep, I saw him get married. Yeah.
Hopefully nobody blames you. It's like that girl was there. This is
Hey,
all her
listen,
fault.
we'll get to that in a minute, but I have my name on some wedding licenses as well.
This is
It's
true.
true.
So
It's true.
I have mine
So
on one that's not mine.
yeah.
I've done one wedding.
I really enjoyed working at the Chapel of Love. The only reason I left is because I transferred schools to California, and
Yeah.
that would have
Right.
been a really
Well, in
bad commute.
fact,
Yeah.
you chose to remain in Minnesota between your first 2 years of college. When you were going to school there, you stayed in Minnesota and worked through the
Mhm.
summer
Yep.
at Chapel of Love, right?
Yeah, although I will say for one of my favorite jobs ever, I only held it for 9 months because I then left.
You know what
And
though?
that
But
became a theme.
sometimes those favorite jobs are the ones that you're only in for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Because you don't have time to see the necessarily the dark underbelly. We'll
That,
get to
Yeah,
some
that's
of the
true.
dark underbelly jobs in a minute.
That's
But
true.
Yeah.
my first job, my very first job, well, when I was like the summer between, was it summer between 8th grade and high school? Maybe. I had never worked. You know, a lot of kids back in my day, your summer job was you picked berries.
Oh,
And
Child labor.
yeah, child labor.
absolutely.
And I was actually, we'll say, encouraged by my parents that I should do that. And so they had a thing, you know, toward the end of the school year, you signed up at school, and then they contacted you, and you know, I think you got a
I'm not
phone
opposed
call.
to this. I wish I'd gotten into the workforce earlier,
Well,
to be honest.
so you know, there is a method to picking, and I'm curious about how many of you that watching on the Brew Crew had any jobs like this. I think some of the older generation maybe did this as well, but I went out the first day, and actually one of my classmates was also doing it. So I mean, like we had to be down where they were going to pick us up on the bus, like at 4:30 a.m. or something.
Yeah,
You
really
start
early.
You know, you take your lunch, you take your stuff, and they paid you. Have you ever seen Napoleon Dynamite, where he goes to move the chickens and says, don't have a lot of cash here. Hope you don't mind if I pay you in change. You know, it was
Right.
kind of like, I mean, they paid you in cash at the end of the day. They were keeping track of how many bushels of strawberries you put. And I wasn't fast at it. I mean, I'd never done it before. Some of these people are bush, you know, I don't know how many I did, but not very many. And it was one of those things where it was very intimidating because I could see the people around me knew what they were doing, kids around
Right.
me, but there were some adults out there doing this too. And the second day I went out, I think my classmate and I both went down there, and the bus never showed up.
Oh,
It like we're down there, bus didn't show up at all. And then we found out that, well, there'd been some kind of issue and they weren't going to be running that particular one anymore. And so it was like, I'm done. That was my out.
I tried.
You know,
I tried.
and I didn't have another. Well, no. Then I had a couple of summers. I think maybe the first summer after my freshman year, I believe, was when this was. My grandmother was managing an assistant managing an
Right.
apartment complex out in Beaverton area. And she convinced the manager, who was this sort of curmudgeon-y old guy. He just didn't seem like a very friendly guy. I don't know how he managed apartments where you have to be able to rent to people and, you know, encourage them you have to be personable in some way. He
Yeah.
wasn't.
They have to
Neither
kinda
he or
like
his wife were. And I was hired to pull weeds in the beds all the way around. And you know, I didn't have any. I mean, I pulled weeds at home, but I mean, it's like
Yeah.
this was huge. This was a huge complex. So I was out there. Think I was only going out on weekends. I don't remember. I think it was just like a Saturday thing. And then my grandmother would feed me lunch. And then I don't remember how I got there and got home, but probably
Locked you out,
either
it's
she
fine.
was picking me up and taking me back, or one of my parents was dropping me off or something. We lived in Northeast Portland. This was clear out in Beaverton. I don't think at that
Oh,
point I
wow.
was taking the bus. But then they beginning of the next Saturday, like the manager takes me out there and points out where I worked last week that weeds were growing. It's like, yeah, it's been a week. You know, the
Yeah,
weeds
they
are. They
grow again.
didn't give me any spray or anything to put on there. I was just pulling weeds.
They're
That's
gonna
the
come
And
thing
back.
is sometimes I've
after,
had good jobs, but the people running them or the people I have to be
Yeah, the
around
people
to
make it
work the
yeah,
bad.
job makes it
and when
not
you're
worth it.
very young and you're not really experienced,
Yeah,
I'm
you know.
sorry.
intimidating.
And I
Carla's
do.
mentioning, because she and I both worked for our grandmother, same grandmother, later on, when she was managing a different apartment complex, and we did a variety of things there, but including painting. We painted apartment doors. I think decks. Carla, you may remember some of the stuff I'm not remembering about that, but we did do a variety of things. But yeah, then my next job after that, I was still in high school. I worked as a restaurant busboy for several
Mm.
months, and that I don't I have a great appreciation now for people
Yeah,
who
but
work in
not a
restaurant
fun
settings,
job.
but it wasn't fun. So
I
I
what
don't
did
know
don't
you?
ever
anybody
need
who's like, I
to work in
loved working as a
restaurants.
busboy. Yeah.
I
I
don't
don't
ever
know.
Nobody.
need to work there to know that I would be a terrible fit. I don't ever
Yeah,
need to be the barista to know that I would not do it well. And I treat those people with such high respect because I'm like, I don't have the mental
right.
organization, the speed, the capacity to do what you do.
Yeah. So for the brew crew again, as we go on talking about some of this, what were a couple of you have mentioned first jobs or early jobs. Talk about your first job and that experience, or what was the weirdest, strangest, most unusual, most bizarre job that you ever had, and what made it so? What was it about? Was it the description of the job itself? Was it in the environment? What was it? So yeah, just, and it doesn't have to be something. I mean, there are a lot of relatively common jobs, but people might not know that you did a job like that. So, oh,
Morrow's
good. Hi,
nut.
Dee Dee. Dee Dee's, oh, PBX operator, chauffeur, singing telegrams. Okay, I love
That's
these.
fun.
Oh,
Oh,
Violin
our
Elf is out
violin
here.
elf is
Deanna's here.
here.
She's pulling weeds right now for free. Yeah, probably your own,
Somebody
right?
pay that
Yeah.
elf. Somebody
Those are the
pay that
ones that's
elf.
like, I wish somebody would still pay me to do that kind of
I know,
stuff at
right?
home, but it doesn't
Yeah.
happen. So going back, Carissa, what do you think was the weirdest job you ever had?
The weirdest
Or is
job
it
I
or is
ever
it the one you
had.
have now? I mean,
I
we
know,
don't want
right?
to make
I
assumptions.
teach preschool. That's pretty weird. I mean, the kids are weird. I'll be honest with that.
Sometimes.
The
But
So
things that
what's
have
the
to
weirdest
fly
one?
out of your face to manage the children, I'm sure. It's like, never thought I'd say that one. Okay.
oh, the number of times that I say I never expected to have to say this sentence in my job. Yeah, that's like a total preschool thing.
Yeah,
No, but
that
the
is.
weirdest job that I ever had was also my favorite job, and it was actually a volunteer job. I got to work for about a year and a half at the National Aviary in Pittsburgh
Oh yeah.
as a volunteer. It started off with just when I lived out there, my husband at the time and I was working part time at my other favorite job, which was Starbucks.
Right.
And so I had free time, and I think he worked part time. He was disabled. He worked part time and he got benefits and stuff. So we would try to find things to do with our time. And he kept on saying, "Let's just go to the aviary." He just really liked going to the aviary. And I'm like, "All right, we'll go to the." I was afraid of birds at the time. I'd had some experiences on vacation where birds were like dive bombing my head and things like that. So I was scared of
That's one
birds. But I'm
does.
like, "Sure, we'll go." And we ended up going there so often. We're like, we should just volunteer here. And so we ended up volunteering there every week. And it was the most fun. Like literally, I wanted to work there. If I
Yeah.
hadn't moved out of Pittsburgh, I was working to try to get a job there.
So wait, if you had stayed in Pittsburgh, you'd still be working at the aviary, and if Chelan had stayed in Minnesota, she'd still be working at the Chapel of Love. Is that what I'm gathering?
That's what you're getting, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And
was so much fun though.
Carissa, do you remember that I played a role in that too? Do you remember what I did?
Yes. So one of the projects that I did when I was working there is that I wanted to help. We were revamping the training system
Training.
for our
Mhm.
volunteers. And I had the idea, because our family does these kinds of things, to make a training video. And I had my dad narrate the training
I was the
video. And
voiceover
so
on the
he got
training
to do the
video.
voiceover. And it's one of those things where like to this day they still talk about that training video. Yeah, it went over very, very well. It was so much fun to do, and working with the birds there, I have so many memories. I actually was primarily focused on running the lorikeet
Laura
experience,
Keats.
Oh,
which
Laura
was
Keith.
super, super loud, but it
Yeah.
actually did set me up for a lot of great things because it was a lot of public speaking. It was a lot of educating the public.
Yeah.
And of course, working with wild animals.
But
A lot of,
that's unusual. That's not
Toddler.
one that a lot of people can brag
right.
about. I like
It
that.
was, yeah, it was. I still like every day. Yesterday, I saw a bird yesterday. I'm like, that looks just like Ninja from the aviary. And
But
I'm like,
you have at times been able to fill me in just on even common domestic birds because you learned a
mhm.
lot in that job where that's that is a standard sparrow of the North. I don't know.
It's a
Yeah.
European starling. They got here
Yeah,
because, yeah. And
they got
honestly,
here before you did. Oh,
it's
whatever.
one of those things where I've considered, like, if I would love to go back to Pittsburgh just to go back to the aviary.
Just to visit.
They've upgraded the aviary a lot since I left. They've added on to it and added exhibits and stuff. So it's one of those things where it's like I just want to go back.
Back. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
do. Yeah.
yeah.
So that was my weirdest job that I ever had.
I
Okay.
think I have one that I think Karissa is unaware of, where I
Oh,
single-handedly took a business down on accident and they never paid me.
what did you do?
What did you do? I got
Do you want to
hired.
name names, or are you just going to keep it
Are we,
generic here?
I'm
are we
just going to keep
redacting?
it generic,
Okay.
possibly because I don't
What
quite
kind
remember
of
the
job it
exact name of
was?
the
Yeah.
business, but I'm pretty sure it was my fault. But it was they were just starting out, and it was a business where they worked with writers and actors to bring their characters to life. Oh, I
Okay.
remember the name of the business. I'm not going to say it. But so I had auditioned and shown, I could do all these voices, and they picked me to be the representative for this first like broadcast time that they were doing this with an author for one of their scripts to meet their character and talk. And I was hired to play a Russian woman, and it was a little bit stereotypical, a lot of it
Mm.
stereotypical, which afterwards, uh, not that we talked about it beforehand, but they asked me for feedback on this live recording, and I brought up that I felt that it was a little bit stereotypical, and everything just kind of like on this live stream, like the the author got upset, like you could tell the people running it were
Oh,
like, and so they were supposed to pay me $100 for that gig, and they never did, and I didn't press them for it because I figured I'd never heard about that business ever again. I
Right.
figured that moment live on screen probably
You
did
took them
not have
down.
authors running to them to sign up for the
that's
service.
interesting.
Good
I don't know
job.
what I consider to be my strangest jobs. I mean, I've been around a little bit longer than the two of you, so I probably had more things
A
that
little
have
bit.
entered in. But I did. I mentioned, the working up through the high school time. When I graduated from high school, I was getting ready to go to college. I needed a summer job. And it turned out my dad worked for the Burlington Northern Railroad. And it turned out I asked him, can you see if there's anything available for us? And he was like, I don't think there will be. And then he came back like the next day and said, hey, there is. They're actually hiring a summer crew, specifically a summer crew. And I mean, it was a lot of just college guys, for this special project to lay track. This is track crew. You're going to be
Hard labor.
throwing down,
A
yeah.
roustabout.
Yeah.
No, they call them Gandhi dancers, is what it was the old
Candy
term,
dancers. There's a
Gandhis or Gandhi
name for
dancers.
it.
But
Dandy
back in the
dancers.
day,
That's
everything was
amazing.
done by hand. By the time I was doing this in the mid 70s, they used some machines for some things. Now, if you go out there and you watch
There's
these
a track layer.
maintenance, they have machines that lay down ties. They have machines that lay down the rail. They have machines that balance them. They have machines that I think that put in the spikes. But
Hmm.
back then, most of it was being done by hand. And I mean, to the point of even having to learn how to use a spike maul. It's not a sledgehammer. It's shaped a little bit different. And you
Yeah.
don't just go up and down. You
You
actually
have to
turn
go
it when you come
over.
down.
Yeah.
But the number of times when you miss, you talk about it
Oh,
vibrating up your hands. I would wake up every morning with my knuckles swollen from the
oh,
pressure of doing that. Um, I ended up with creosote that they treat the ties with, even with gloves on. You'd end and wearing long sleeve shirts. Creosote we get underneath had little spots of like little burn marks. The My first week on the job, we were mostly out laying new track toward one of the shipping terminals in North Portland, but I got pulled off one day to go with the track maintenance crew in Vancouver and just do maintenance stuff. They would do things like if there was they would be crews that would go out and they would say, oh, look, a spike is coming up. And, so you'd go back out and hammer it down, or you'd replace a plate, or you'd replace a tie if it was wearing out. And this hopper truck, they're the ones that carry like grain or coal or other things where they can go on a high area and they open the bottom to drop stuff down into a bin. The hatch had broken open on the track, so they disconnected it from the rest of the train. This was sitting in the shipping yards. Yeah, I smelled like creosote, Carla, and I still hate the smell of creosote for that experience. I did that 2 summers in a row. And they sent our crew out because we had to shovel the creosote out that had dumped onto the ground enough to be able to jack up the hatch and close it. And to do that, we were shoveling creosote from the ground and underneath into a box car that we'd pulled up alongside. And then a couple of us were inside the box car shoveling it off to the side. What this was something called coke. It's not cocaine. It's not Coca-Cola. It is a petroleum derivative that's kind of like black, has a texture like black styrofoam pellets. It's toxic.
Oh, fun.
And it's powdery. And no, they gave us no goggles, no masks. By the end of the day, we were covered. We looked like we'd come out of a coal mine. And we went in to wash up. And now our faces are stinging. Our eyes are stinging. We all ended up at the emergency room. I couldn't sleep that night, even though they flushed out our eyes. I couldn't sleep that night. My eyes were still burning. And the next day I was going to call in sick. And they said, no, we need you to come in. We'll take you back to the hospital. If I had not reported to work, because it was the railroad, it's under Federal Transportation Authority, there would have been a federal investigation if I had called.
Oh my God.
So they take me back in, and they actually had to swab out the inside of my eyelids and put me on a special medicated eye drop. Nobody ever checked whether we ended up with black lung disease or anything else from this.
Did you?
But it was a big deal. And I still went back and worked for the railroad that rest of that summer and the next summer. I'm going to also mention, because I've done a lot of jobs. The other one you mentioned, signing as a witness on marriage licenses. So I worked as a pastor at our church in Oregon for about almost 7 years. And I was actually hired, it was my first nonprofit fundraising job. I was hired as development director for the school that we ran at the church to run the capital campaigns to build a high school, multi-million-dollar campaign. But I was also brought on board as the stewardship pastor. So I am ordained, and I have conducted several weddings. I've also conducted several funerals and memorial services. But
some of those were odd too.
Those were one of those particularly the first funeral I ever did.
Odd.
The first funeral I ever did, a friend went to the church, and I'd been up at the hospital with them and their mom when she was struggling, and she passed away. And they asked me if I would do the memorial service. She loved frogs, and she had she would play this nature sounds CD of her frog sounds. She had frog figurines. She had a pet land frog that lived in a terrarium. And they wanted all of this at her memorial service. I had to draw the line, like with playing the CD of frog sounds throughout the entire service. I said, you can do it as people are coming in and leaving, but no. They had the Freddie the Frog in the terrarium on the platform behind me. They had a table with the figurines, so people who wanted to could take a memento after they'd already picked out their stuff.
Wasn't one of the frogs motion sensors?
Okay, that was the part they didn't tell me they were going to do. But as people were coming, and they weren't doing this as a joke, they were all very serious, but this was to honor their mom. They had the frog figurine, giant frog that was motion sensitive, that she kept on her porch. So as people came up to her front door, it would croak at them. They put it inside the door to the side. I didn't know this at the time. I came in a different door, and I didn't know till the service was over, and somebody told me that as people were coming in, this frog was croaking at them as they passed the main door. And I thought, at the very least, okay, I had one of the other associate pastors there helping me out, and I had one of the wives of one of our pastors playing piano for this service. And I thought, at least it's going to be pretty anonymous. Nobody's going to know how weird this was. Our senior pastor showed up. Our senior associate pastor showed up. A couple of our elders were in the room. And nobody ever said, okay, that was, I mean, I did all I could to
Nothing needed
control
to
this,
You
be
did
said.
what
but
you did your job.
I did my job. But the, I can think is Michigan J. Fry. You're not that
Yeah.
far off.
We're
Yeah,
on the
You're not
way
that far
very
off.
accurate.
there.
Um, but yeah, but the associate pastor who helped me out, Alex, after that,
Oh
just
gosh, Alex
relentlessly,
was the
he would come
one.
in and say, "Hey, Steve, we have a memorial service. I thought of you. Yeah, they're going to have birds flying around the inside." I mean, he was just making stuff up. Obviously, we weren't doing that, but anything that he could make up that was weird, we would do. But
That's so
yes, but
Alex.
I've had
Very
some
on
also
brand.
had some really really moving and meaningful experiences, both officiating at weddings and at memorial services. They're just, it is an unusual place to be. And even a lot of the stuff I did as a pastor, where I ended up doing premarital
Counseling.
counseling and even
Yeah.
marital counseling in a few cases, was not a job I expected. So,
Yeah.
but again, all of those things, how has that, I can definitely say it's had an effect on how I approach certain things in
Mm.
work and in life later on. So,
Yeah, that
um,
frog one is one that I remember
yeah,
frequently.
we're going to wrap up here, I know, but I just wonder, are there, I was thinking about what are some of the most unusual jobs in the world? And a couple came to mind this week. I was looking some things up. One is, and in the promos, we posted some of this, that there are still people who are professional sniffers, including the fact that they will test. There are people who are professional body odor sniffers. They sniff armpits for a living. There are
Yeah.
people who are, you've heard about these. They're mattress testers and stuff. They actually practice resting and sleeping on mattresses and then give reports, to the mattress manufacturers.
I
In
love that job.
Japan, this one has been going on for years, for many years, and they still do it. And I can't remember now. Somebody can look this up. I was going to have it pulled up here. There's an official name for this, but they cram the subways and commuter trains in Japan so
And then the
full.
pushers.
They're the passenger pushers. They
Yep.
cram people in so that the doors can close, and they're just like
Yep.
sardines in there sometimes.
Yep.
But I mean, it's just there are just unusual jobs in the world.
I like
Um,
my favorite unusual job that I've ever heard of are professional cuddlers. I
Professional
think
cuddlers
that
is a
is such
weird
an
one.
interesting job.
Yeah,
I always wanted to do, I would not be able to do it physically, but one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, and Dad, you'll hate this, is the people who have to replace the light bulb on top of the airline, the things that alert planes, hey, your
The,
oh
the
yeah,
tower,
line
go
came
up
no,
out.
height. Yeah,
And
no,
yeah,
you climb up, and at some point you are just free climbing up on these
no,
things
yeah,
and have to muscle
yeah.
up to the top to change out the light bulb.
Crazy,
no.
I
crazy.
would do it.
And listen, I'm going to say this because we are going to have to kind of wrap things up, but there are going to be people who will tune in later and watch the recording of this, and you can still make comments when you're doing
Yeah,
that.
let
We'd
us
still love to
know.
hear from people. But we're going to have to probably wrap this up and talk about what's coming up in the next couple
What
weeks.
is coming up? Tell me.
I don't know. How am I
Do
supposed to?
it.
Oh, wait, no, I do. I do
You
know
should
these
know.
things.
You
I
probably
do know. We're actually taking a little break next week. We did think we were going to be going forward with a show next week, but I mentioned at the outset that Carol is going to be involved with Spirit of Spokane Chorus at regional competitions, and they are singing during those. And if you are in the Spokane area, it would be great. You can find out more online about that going to Spirit of Spokane Chorus's website. But many of you live outside the area, and you can still tune in and watch live on the webcast. It's mentioning here, and we'll talk about this during this next week. I'll be posting things both on the Coffee Breaks Facebook page, but also on my personal one, of course. But you can follow this link and go in and sign up to watch the webcast. They'll be on at about 12:40 p.m. Pacific time next Saturday, and you may get a glimpse of Carol, but you'll be able to hear the Spirit of Spokane chorus. But I'm going to be there to support her.
Yeah.
And be there all morning because we don't know exactly what time they're going to go on. So we're just going to take a little break next week. And not be on, but the following week, and Violin Elf, you'll appreciate this one. Kathleen Kinney, who is a Spokane-based professional harpist, and singer, and I've already recorded a conversation with Kathleen. Oh my gosh, it's another one. We had the Violin Elf on a couple of weeks ago, and we get to have another local area, but amazing musician and individual on here. to me, to bring out and to share with people not only the talent but the stories and the inspiration and the motivation that goes with these is amazing. So I'm looking forward to sharing that conversation with Kathleen. It's another great one that you won't want to miss. We talked about this every week. We talk about the fact that we want to encourage people to share with us topics and guests that you would like to see. You can email us, but I'm letting you know, as we're in season 8 now, we're doing something new. And that is that if you recommend to us a topic or you introduce us to a potential guest and we end up securing that guest or choosing that topic, we are going to have special merchandise that we're going to send to you as a thank you.
You
So
get
you're going to get
prizes.
a prize. And a lot of you have done that in the past. You're going, well, where's my prize? I did this
Yeah,
previously. That's, we always say we appreciate what's been done
we
in the
do.
past. But we're looking forward. We're in season 8 now, and this is something new that we're doing. So we encourage you to do that. And then I want to remind everybody that we do have a YouTube channel. Some of you may be watching and listening on YouTube. If you're not, and that's not a place where you're subscribed, we want to encourage that. We're really going to be working this year, working with someone who is a specialist in this area right now to find ways to kind of spice up. No, it's not really going to be spicy. We're going to do more with the YouTube channel. And we want to encourage people to be subscribed. And if you are already a subscriber, would you be willing to just share that with the people around you so that they know about some of the fun topics, some of the amazing guests and topics that we have? We just think it's important to do that. I want to finish one more time talking just a little bit about where I am this weekend and why it's so special. I have this privilege and honor to be here with a group of veterans and other supporters of this organization called the Saber 6 Foundation. And it's an amazing organization. One of the other things we're going to be doing starting in May is that each month on Coffee Breaks with Steve, we're going to select a nonprofit organization that we're going to promote. And we're going to give you, we're not going to ever strong arm anybody into doing anything, but we are going to give you the opportunity to learn more about these nonprofit organizations and to donate to them, support them if it's something that appeals to you. So one of the things that you'll be seeing is that we will be doing that more. We'll do a nonprofit will be the nonprofit of the month. And we already know that there's some out there that we would like to promote and highlight, but similar to giving us topics and guests, if you have a nonprofit organization that you think it would be worthwhile for Coffee Breaks with Steve to learn more about, you can share that with us as well at that same email address, cbwsteve@comcast.net. But I want to thank the veterans and the organizers for the Saber 6 Foundation for letting me be part of this organization on an ongoing basis and for allowing me to be here for a special weekend like this one where we get to experience so much together. I'm blessed and honored and humbled by the fact that these people, these veterans who share so much brotherhood and camaraderie together, been through so much together. They were a combat unit. And they went through a lot together, and that they embrace me and really, realistically, they treat me like one of their own and like a brother. And it's not something I know that I have earned, but it's something that they are wonderful enough to do. And so I appreciate it very much. Karissa Chelan, final thoughts from you as we get ready to wrap this up today.
I really hope that everybody goes and shares their odd jobs in the comments if you are tuning in later, because this is such an interesting topic to me, just the different things that people have done. So I hope that everybody who's watching this after the fact will go on and share their first jobs or odd jobs, whatever you want to share with us, because we would love to know. So
yeah. I feel like we barely scratched the surface. This probably is something that could have a part 2 or part 3.
We could.
And every job has something to teach you.
Yeah, this is true. Life lessons from every
something to Chelan. Do they have something to teach you?
Teach you?
Of course they do. There can be only one.
There can be. Well, listen, once again, we talk about nonprofits. We talk about some of the work that we've done, but each day, every single one of us has an opportunity to do something that touches lives. And we follow our passions to do that. So we want to encourage everyone. Karissa, do you want to say it?
Chelan looks like she wants to say something.
I want to mouth it with you.
All right, let's all say it together. Find a way to make a difference in your world this week. All
That's
right.
hard when we got the lag.
It's hard.
I
It's,
know.
yeah,
It's
God
like, how
bless
do you
you all.
top
We'll
it?
see you next time on
We'll
Coffee
see you
Breaks
next
with
time. God bless you. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.